Hey, this is the fourth video in the filter paint series, and in this video we are going to add some icons to our visuals with the help of Figma. Icons can make dashboards more engaging and user-friendly by giving additional visual cues to it, and they also give a more aesthetic feel. Let's get into it. If you download and open the Power BI file, you can find a customer churn dashboard in it showing how many customers are leaving the bank. And because we have limited space on the dashboard, we put the slicers in this filter pane. And when the filter pane is closed, we wanted to indicate whether filters are used or not. So we use these colors on the button as well as a filter counter. And then the other variation is having these filter labels directly as a tooltip when you hover over the filter counter. If you're interested in how to build all these things, you can click on the card here and check out the previous videos. We are going to build the icons in Figma. You can find already a screenshot in the Figma file if you downloaded it. And the first thing we are going to do is find matching icons. Probably this is the hardest part, to simply find matching icons to the slicer names, because sometimes we have slicers with cost center or like here age group, and it's not always possible to find a correctly matching icon. In these cases, we can just find something which sort of resembles, for example, age group. We could find people, or with cost center, we could find a bank or a building or something related to money, something like that. The easiest way to find icons would be to download an entire icon library. There are really good ones out there, but in this case, I think it's hard to find all the necessary icons within one library because we have some unique slicers here. So instead of that, we are going to use a plugin called Iconify to handpick the icons one by one. So in the top left corner, go to Files, then Plugins, Manage Plugins. And here we are going to look for Iconify. Then you can open it or click on Run. Then this window is going to show. And here we can search for different terms. For example, in the case of geography, we might want to look for Earth or planet. That would be maybe a matching icon. Let's look for planet. And yeah, we could take this one. This is Earth. We can also check here in the bottom the licensing of the icons. If it's like MIT, Apache 2.0 or this CC BY 4.0, they are generally good to go. They are commercially free to use. So we can select this one and drag it. We can close the plugin and let's format a little bit our icon. First of all, let's make it gray. We can use the hex code 666666. This is the same gray we have in Power BI, the second row in the second column. Then we can make the size a bit larger. So instead of 16, we can make it 24 by 24. We can lock the ratio if we click here on constraint proportions. And then if we change the height, the width is also automatically changing. Then we can rename it. This is going to be geography. By pressing Ctrl Alt P, you can run the last plugin, in this case the Iconify, and we can look for our next slicer here, which is gender. And for gender, we can look for gender, for example. And here I like these icons showing the male and the female at the same time within one icon. So we could pick, for example, this one. And we can also change the size, lock the ratios, and change the height to 24. Move it below the geography icon. We can close the icon panel. And this is another challenge by picking these icons, is to find a matching style. So one thing is to find the corresponding icon to the names, the slicer names. And the other thing is that the icons should have the same style or as close as possible. You see here in the planet that there are no sharp corners, so all the corners are rounded. And that's also good here in this gender icon. But for example, the weighing is still different. So the Earth has a thicker stroke width, and also it feels larger, even though they have the same frame size. The icon itself is still bigger. So let's make the Earth icon smaller. Select the icon itself. Make sure that you don't select the frame, but that you click directly on the icon. And here you might have to lock the ratio again, and then we make it a bit smaller. Select the height, and by pressing the down arrow, you decrease the size by 1 pixel each time. 16. Now it feels better, so the stroke is around the same size and the entire way looks similar. Then we can center align it within this frame by clicking on Align Horizontal Centers or pressing Alt-H. Then we can click on Align Vertical Centers, pressing Alt-V. Why is it important that we select the icon itself and not the frame? Is because when we import it later in Power BI, we want to have the same scaling, the same frame size for all the icons. Then we can go back to our gender icon and we can rename it gender and also change the color to this dark gray. By pressing 6 and then enter, it's going to autofill it. And then we can create our next icon. Press Ctrl Alt P to recall the Iconify plugin. And our next slicer is going to be age group. So this is a tricky one. What can you use for age group? Like, I already picked it before. I would pick simply people because people age and you can group people. We could search for people. And we could pick some of these, or if you want to have more results, you could also look for alternative keywords. So for example, having icons like this, we could also look for user or users. And we are going to pick one. This might have the correct stroke width. Let's check. Let's make it 24 by 24. Don't forget to click on constraint proportions. And yeah, I like this one. Maybe making it a bit smaller. Then make sure that you align them within the frame, and the name is going to be age group, and we can change the color to dark gray. And yeah, this is what we would have to do for all the other slicers here, but I already picked all the relevant icons. If you click on this icon page, you can find an icon for all the slicers. If you go back to our Power BI page, we are going to use the icons here within the slicer labels. Also here for the tooltip, we are going to do the same, as well as directly in the slicer pane. To have the same style everywhere, we are going to use also the icons directly on these labels. We can export the images from Figma. Let's go back there, select all of them, and you can click here, add an export. And we want to ensure the quality so that there is no pixelation if we import it into Power BI. The 24 by 24 might be a little bit small. So let's export it with a double size, increased size. If you put 2 here, the export is going to have twice the size what we have here. Then PNG is okay. We can click on export 8 layers and save them somewhere. Then let's go back to Power BI. And here how we will add the icons. It's not possible to add directly to this tag here, to the slicer header. So we are going to layer them with some other visuals, and we are going to use buttons for that. We can copy this text here, which is actually a button, and put it above the text geography here. Then go to style. We are going to change the text to geography. And the font size is going to be 9, which is the same font size what we have in the slicer header. We can move it with the arrow buttons and fit it approximately. Then again, scroll down here to icons, activate them. Icon type is going to be custom. And then we can import our first icon. Look for the geography icon, click open. And now they are overlapping, the text and the icon, so we can add a bit more padding to the text. Let's change the left padding to 28. I'm gonna move the button so we can see it well. And then go back to the icons. The image fit normal is fine for us. The alignment and the padding is also okay. but I think it's still a bit too large compared to the text. So we can change the icon size, and let's change it to 20. This feels better. Now we can position it on the top of the slicer label again. Make sure that it's the same height, and the icon should start at the same line where this multiple selections bracket starts. Then we can copy the button. We do the same for gender. Position it on top of the gender slicer header. Then we go back to visualization and change the text to gender. And we also change the icon to the gender icon. Then we can copy it one more time. Let's move it to the age group, the copy, change the text to age group, and the icon to age group as well. And here we can move it a little bit because the icon is wider. So let's just move it above the age group. And we are going to do the same for the other slicers. I'm going to do it off camera. When we are done with it, on the top in the menu ribbon, we can go to View, open the selection pane, and select all the buttons. And we can group them by clicking Ctrl G or just right click them and group. They are going to be our slicer headers. And this slicer base is our filter pane. We can move them here below the slicers. So we actually want them to be below these slicers. It will allow us to still be able to use these icons here. Then open the slicers group and select all of your slicers. Then go to formatting, open the slicer headers, and we are not going to disable them because then the scaling is going to be off. So instead of that, we want to change the font color into a transparent color. Click on the conditional formatting and change it to field value. And we have already a measure in place, which is called transparent color, which is nothing else than the hex code of white with a 0% opacity. Then again on the visualizations pane, click on General, Effects, and remove the background. After this, we want to add the icons in this visual. These are two visuals here. We have one shape on top hindering us to be able to click on these because these labels are actually from a slicer visual. We don't want to be able to activate them. And then we are going to add the images here. Click on Format Your Visual, go to Images. And here we can add the field, but we don't have the option to import an image file. So what we have to do is to encode the images and put them into a data column. And luckily we can directly encode them in Figma. Let's go back there. And we are going to use another plugin for that. Go to Files, Plugins, Manage Plugins, and look for Export SVG to URI. Run it. And we have multiple output options here, CSS, data, SVG, and then different URIs. But I found that this default setting, data and simple, is working for us in Power BI. So we leave it at that. Then select the first icon, geography. And now here you immediately have a code. If you click in it, we can copy it either by clicking here or just simply pressing Ctrl C. Then let's go back to Power BI and then click on Transform Data here. We have one table here, this slicer table, which includes all our slicer names. And we can add also these URLs here or this encoded image data here. Click on this gear icon next to the source at the Apply steps. This is a manual table we created before, and here we can add the new column. Let's call it icon URL, and we can paste the code here, then click OK. After that, click Apply. Let's go back to our slicer label here, look for this icon URL column. But before moving it into the field here, we have to change the data category in the bottom to image URL. Now let's move it on the image field. And we already see something here, but it looks pretty weird. We can change the image position to left instead of top, and it's still very large. We can change the image area size to 20, and we can also remove this spacing here, put it to 0, change it to 0 pixels. I don't really like it. The icon is pretty large and it's also very dark. It could be a bit smaller and it could be also a bit lighter. So let's change it in Figma. I'm going to select all the icons here and holding down Alt and then dragging them, we are going to create a copy. And here, let's change the selection colors to a lighter gray. We can type 999, 999. That's the gray in Power BI, which is in the second column and in the first row. And by keeping the same scaling, we can change the icon sizes within these frames. For that, I'm going to select all the icons. Make sure that you are not selecting the frame, but the icons within the frames by clicking on them directly. Then if you press K, you can change the scaling here. Let's change it to 0.75. Hit enter. So these are going to be the icons we want to encode. Let's click on geography. Make sure you don't click on the icon this time, but on the frame, the entire frame. And then let's copy the code into Power BI. Here, click on the gear icon as the source again and replace the icon URL. And after that, click on apply. This looks more balanced than the previous one, so we can do the same thing for the other slicers. Let's select the gender icon, copy the code, go back to Power BI, open the source, copy it to gender, and let's do the same for all the other icons. Yeah, I know this is a lot of copy paste and manual labor to do these icons, but this is the way. And I think these plugins are still make it very easy to do. After we have all the codes, we can click on close and apply. And now we have the icons everywhere. They are still a bit large, but we can make sure that the image fit is not on fill. So it decreases them even a little bit. And you can see that in some cases, the text is not showing anymore because the icon takes up some space. We can scroll up to the callout values and change the label text to 8 pixels. The credit score has the longest text, so if that one is visible, all the others are going to be visible as well. Now we can do the same thing for the other alternative, adding the icons to this tooltip. For that, let's go to the tooltip page. We have here a button showing a message when no slicer is filtered. We can hide it for now and select the slicer, then go to Format Visual, Images, and let's add the icon URL here as well. Again, image fit is normal or fit. The position is going to be on the left. The area size 20 and space between image and value 0 pixel. Let's check how it looks like. It looks good in my opinion. One thing we could do is to make the icons for the selected slicers purple. I'm gonna show what I mean. I clear the selection here and just select a couple of visuals. The whole reason we made the labels here purple is to draw attention because it shows all the slicers label all the time. So to be able to pick the selected values as quick as possible, we made them purple, and we can do the same for these icons as well. Let's go back to Figma and we are going to copy all our icons again, select them all, press then Alt and drag them. And we will give the same purple color to them like the slicer labels. I'm going to copy the hex code. And now we have to do the same thing. Copy the data and copy it back to Power BI in the table. Click on the gear icon in the source tab, add the new column. It's going to be purple icon URL. Then copy all the hex codes. I do it off screen. After you copied it, click on OK, then click close and apply. Then on the data pane, go to the purple icon URL and change the data category also to image URL. Then let's go back to our tooltip. And if you go to the image on the visualization pane, we can add only one field. So we will return either the gray or the purple icon with one measure with a condition. Let's create a new measure and call it active slicer icon color equals, and we are going to put a variable called slicer filtered equals. We have a measure we did in a previous video, which is called slicer is filtered, which is checking whether a slicer is filtered or not. And then we will have another variable icon color. And this is going to be the condition. If the slicer filtered variable equals 1, that means that it filtered, return the purple icon. But we cannot put it directly. We have to put it in a function. So let's say we can use a max function, then the slicer table purple icon URL, close the max function. And if the result is false, then return max icon URL normal gray color. Close the parenthesis of the max, close the parenthesis of the if, and we will return the icon color. Press enter. We also have to change the data category to icon URL for the measure. And then in the visualization pane, we can remove the icon URL and we can put this active slicer icon color on the field. I'm also going to show the button again. But let's go back to page 2. And now when you hover over the number, the filter counter here, all the icons where there is a value selected are purple. So this is it. Let me know in the comments what you think about it, whether you would use it in bigger projects, if it's worth the hassle or not in your opinion. If you like the video, you can leave a like or even subscribe. I will do similar videos in the future, and see you next time.